Hello everybody, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. And in this video I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know about Infusion. And before I end this video, I'm going to be giving out a strategy that I use to use the least amount of ethers possible while getting what you need to the max Infusion. So before I actually start this video, I want to mention that I'm not going to be talking about where to get droplets of ether or drops of ether in this video. I want to make this as short as possible. I want to make this as organized as possible, and I want to make sure you're getting the information you need to become better at this game overall. So I'm going to be putting that in a separate video, so that way I'm not wasting your time, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's actually get into the video. Infusion is one of the greatest additional ways to actually obtain gear score, and it really helps out a lot. Pretty much what Infusion does each time you level up is it increases the level cap by 10. Now a lot of you might be wondering how that's going to help out. Just stay tuned, and I'm going to teach you, or I'm going to show you as well how it's going to help out. So on the left hand side of the UR, you will see like the crystals, not the like they're little small little shaped diamond like shapes or whatever. Some of them are filled, some of them are not. That right there is the infusion count and how many times you can infuse your weapons. Now you may see the purple ones as well. So on top of the 10 level increase cap, when it comes to infusing, when you get to the purple ones, you're also getting your skill levels increased to the maximum. Well, not the maximum, you're getting your maximum skill level increased by 1 as well. So if I were to get to the 4th infusion, I could take my skill level to 6, and then the 5th infusion I could take my skill level to 7. So that's pretty much how that works out. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how much of an increase this actually is, and pretty much a physical example of why I would go for it. Okay, so as you can see right here, I'm actually going to go to my cleric first, as you may have already seen, may be too late. But anyways, I want to show you like the full like example of why this is very important. Okay, as you can see right here, you look at the swords first, you can see all of them are 32 costs and nearly have the same stats. As you can see right here, this Esperetta Lance and then a Lance of Snow literally have nearly the same stats as the 32 costs. So as you can see right there, by default, like if they're running at the same pace with no plus values or whatsoever, or they like have all plus values and the same amount of ethers and all that stuff, as you can see right here, they nearly give off the same gear score. So as you can see right here, you can see the difference between a non-infused lance and an infused lance right here. I wouldn't say it's a dramatic difference, but it's a pretty big difference. It's like nearly a 2k difference. And then over here, if that's not enough for you, you can see the difference between a 34 that's infused 3 times and another 34 that has a lot more plus values, but it's not infused at all. That's nearly a 3k difference right there. So just its stats alone is pretty much nearly a 3 to 4k difference, and that's just the stats alone. We're not even counting boosters yet, because I'm doing this as a cleric. As you can see right here, I'm counting this as a cleric. I'm not even the right class to be talking about lances. So let me switch to my lancer, where in my skill tree it actually gives like a percentage boost, and on top of it I have the percentage boost thanks to lance. So I'm actually going to have percentage boost on this class compared to the cleric class to actually be talking about these. As you can see right here, there's even a wider gap between the 32 costs and the 34 costs, as you can see right there. That is because they have higher flat stats, and with the percentage boost that they have to offer, the higher the flat stats, right, the more boost the percentage will give. Like, you don't have to increase this percentage boost at all. You can increase like the flat stats, and right off the bat you will be getting more of a boost from the percentage. The flat stats being like the actual number stats, it's not like a percentage. Like as you can see right here, 8,235, that's the flat stat. Well, I'm not going to say that's exactly the flat stat. It may look like it thanks to the percentage, but if you actually go to like Infuse right here, these are like legitimately the flat stats without the boosters. 8,000 attacks, 8,600 attack, and whatsoever. Those are like the legitimate flat stats of that weapon. So that's pretty much, it's like the default stats, like without any of the boosters, without any of the fancy schmancy stuff or anything. That's what flat stats are, if you're unaware. Okay, so an example of this is, okay, let's use 10% as an example. Alrighty, so if I use 10% on the number 10, what would 10% of 10 be? 10% of 10, then like 10% of the number 10 would be 1. Okay, so let's use 10% on the number 100. What would 10% of 100 be? That would be 10. Alrighty, next one. Let's try 10% of 1,000. What would 10% of 1,000 be? 100. As you can see, just increasing the number is increasing the amount of what would be left over from the percentage. So like that's an example of pretty much how percentages are going to work with the flat stats. Since you are infusing, you're increasing the flat stats, and because of that, the percentages are getting more of a boost from that, so they're increasing the gear score even more further than you originally would be getting a gear score increase. And this is going to keep happening with a team adding new cost gear to the game. The higher the cost of the gear, the more the percentages are actually going to scale it, and it's just going to become extremely overpowered and just all types of shreddage and wreckage and all that funky jazz. So as you can see right there, not only are the flat stats being raised, the percentages are also giving an extra boost on top of the flat stats. So that's why infusing is really OP, and like you can see right here, like literally physical examples of how much actual gear score you can actually attain. And this is just one piece. This is just one piece. So when you're seeing all these people infusing, it really does help out. Trust me, it really does. Well, I think you can trust me after watching this and pretty much me explaining this. Okay, so moving on from there, infusion. How to infuse, what to infuse, and what not to infuse. When it comes to infusing your stuff, you could possibly be using a lot of ethers, and I want to make sure I prevent that, because ethers are a pretty scarce item when it comes in this game. They're not exactly something you can exactly farm for, and they're just not like, they're usually events orientated type stuff or money orientated. So when it comes to ethers, I want to make sure you're using as less ethers as you can, because infusion is a very important part of gear score, and you want to make sure you have as much ethers as you can for when you infuse the next time. So without further ado, let's actually get into this. Okay, so no matter what you infuse, just like I said, you're going to be using gold, you're going to be using, which gold really doesn't matter at all, to be fairly honest. You're going to be using material, and by material, I'm talking about gear that might be actually helpful towards your class, or might be helpful sometime in the long run or the future. So this could hurt you. Yes, there is sacrifices included with this, and it's going to cost ethers on top of it. Alrighty, so with that being said, let's actually get into the ways. There are 3 different types of gear you can actually infuse. It's similar weapon, near identical weapon, and the same weapon. How the similar weapon works is they have to be the same rarity and infusion cal limit as what you're trying to infuse. So pretty much they have to, like said, I have like 5 levels I can actually increase, so they have to have like the 5 levels too. As you can see right there, they got the 5 diamonds, so that pretty much indicates that they have the 5 levels. If they don't have that, it's case closed. It doesn't matter what you try. If it has 4, you're not going to be able to infuse it whatsoever. It doesn't matter anything else they have on top of it. Like, you're not able to infuse it. It's case closed. Also, they have to be the same rarity. SRs don't work in the SSRs, SSRs don't work in the URs, or flipped around. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's case closed. They're not going to work out whatsoever. You cannot infuse one into the other, no matter which position you put them in or how many times you try. So that's not going to work out either at all. So you got to make sure they're the same rarity, and you got to make sure they're the same infusion count. Okay, so when it comes to near identical weapon, it literally has the same things that a similar weapon has, but on top of it, it has to be of the same or higher cost. So you want to make sure it's the same or higher cost, because if it falls under that, it's going to fall under similar. So it has to be the same cost as the thing you're trying to infuse or higher. It also has to have the same classification. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you already know by classification, especially weapons. We're talking about weapons of the same class, but when it comes to armors, this can be a bit difficult to understand, at least at first, because I didn't really understand this at first. I was working towards something, I put my sweat and tears and blood into it. By the time I finished, I finally came to realize that they were both different classifications. And yes, by classifications, I'm talking about actual armor. I farmed for armor. I ended up having the same, like, different classifications, and then I realized all that time and sweat was wasted into this. So I don't want that happening to you either. So let's actually get into how this is going to work out. Okay, so we both have armor plates and headgear with different classifications. As you can see right here, to tell what classification they are, all you gotta do is look right here, and you see where it says type and helm. Like, I'm clicking on it right here, right next to where it would be usually. It says right there, that's the classification of this. Some of these might end up being hats instead. As you can see right here where I'm clicking type, this one's hat instead. These are two different classifications, so you want to be careful. It doesn't matter the cost, as long as they're the same or higher cost. It doesn't matter the stats they give off, and they are the same classification or the same type in this matter. So since they're not the same type, hat and helm, they don't fall under the same classification, so one of them would fall under similar weapons. So keep that in mind. Has to have the same type. If they're not the same type, they're not the same classification. Now that we have that out of the way. Okay, so for the armor plate, or the chest piece I meant to say, we have the type armor right here, as you can see. And then some of these are going to be ending up as clothing instead. Usually stuff that gives off magic defense is clothing. Stuff that gives off defense is like armor. And same for like helms and clothing. Clothing is usually, I mean hats. Hats are usually magic defense. And then helms are usually defense. It could be different, but that's usually the case. So those have to fall under the same classification as well, both armors and weapons. Now that I cleared that out of the way, I hope you understand what armors, classification of armors are like, and how to tell whether they are or not. Okay, so with that being said, moving on from near identical weapon, I can't really talk about same weapon more than it's already talked about, because literally it has to be the exact same weapon. Like it says it right here. If it's not the exact same weapon, it's not the exact same weapon. There's no ands, ifs, or buts to talk about it. So I can't go more in depth because it's already like in max depth possible. So it literally says it right there. It has to be the same weapon. If it's not the same weapon, it's not the same weapon. There's no and ifs or buts. There's no mechanics about it. So that pretty much covers that right there. And how does this play a part? Why am I talking about this? And what role does this play? Okay, so for each one of these, they all cost a different amount of ethers to actually infuse. Similar, no matter what you do, is going to cost 3 each time you're trying to level up. Near identical is going to cost 1, so you're saving 2 more ethers each time you level up. That's a lot. You're literally saving what? 2, 4, 6. You're saving 6 ethers getting to level 3. So that's a lot of ethers saved using a near identical weapon than a similar weapon. So honestly, when it comes to similar weapons are last resort when it comes to getting them infused for 3 ethers. I mean, I have had to do that a couple times, but I would highly recommend for you to use near identical weapons instead. I understand if you have to use similar, go ahead and use similar if you have to as a last resort, but if you don't need to, or you don't think you're going to need to in the future, I definitely would save your ethers and just do near identical. And then the exact same is going to literally cost 0 ethers. Now, this will be different for the purple levels. I don't know why. As you already, if I didn't already say, let me rephrase that the purple levels increase the cap for the skill level. Like, since they can go up to 5, if I were to do the purple levels right, each time I do the purple levels, I can increase it even further. So it can go from 5 to 6 if I increase it, and then from 6 to 7 if I increase it as well. So that's pretty much how that works out. The skill level cap gets increased 2 each time you infuse at the purple levels. I don't know why they did this for the purple levels, but pretty much how the purple levels work is they're going to cost a lot more ethers. By a lot more ethers, it could be a lot or a little depending on the type of gear you use to infuse. But with similar weapons, it's going to cost a crap ton. For level 4, it's going to cost 15 ethers to get to level, or it's going to cost 15 ethers to get level 4. And level 5, they multiply what level 4 is by 2, or twice the amount. So it's going to cost 30 ethers at level 5 to actually get to that level. It's stupid. There's no world I will recommend, or anybody in this game, including anybody in the top tier class, to do level 5 unless they hate you, unless they want you to suffer, unless they want to see you fail. There is no way in heck I would ever recommend using 30 ethers whatsoever to infuse. 15 ethers is something I wouldn't really recommend. 30 ethers is all hands down. There's no questions asked. Don't do it. I'm not even going to recommend it. I'm telling you right now to not do it, because you're literally killing a lot of potential gear score you could have in the game. Seriously, just don't do it. 15 ethers, I still wouldn't recommend either, but 15 ethers is like a lot more better because you're literally saving 15 ethers. I still wouldn't recommend 15 ethers at all either. 15 ethers is nowhere near recommended to do whatsoever either, because 15 ethers is also an excessive amount. Just 30 is just way worse. Like, I can't even believe a team decided to do that. Like, I don't understand the priority they make for level 4 and level 5 to actually make it so freaking expensive. Okay, so I can't really show you to be exact, but when it comes to the what's it called, near identical, I don't have any gear that I could show you myself. Near identical for level 4, it's going to cost 5 ethers, and then near identical for level 5, it's going to cost 10 ethers. Now 10 ethers is still a bit iffy, but it's a lot better. If you have a certain budget, you could probably do 10 ethers, to be fairly honest, as long as it isn't like really bad, like I would say like McDonald's budget or something like that, or some fast food third-rate place budget. Unless you're living in like an economy where minimum wage is pretty decent, then it doesn't really matter, to be fairly honest. But for most of us, a McDonald's wage ain't gonna freaking cut it. So it really depends on the budget when it comes to 10 ethers. 5 ethers is worth it. If you ever infused a similar weapon, you know how it feels to get rid of 3 ethers. So 5 ethers isn't bad. It's going to cost that when it comes to using a near identical weapon on level 4. So it's not bad. If you really need to do it, you can do it, but if you could get away with it, I would. And for the last one, but not the least one, I don't have the same weapon to show you either. But when it comes to infusing the exact same weapon at level 4, it's going to cost literally 1 ether, and then level 5, it's literally going to cost 2 ethers. Literally, it's going to cost 1 ether at level 4, and 1 ether at level 4 and 2 ethers at level 5. Okay, so right here, I'm on the screen to show you what a perfect infusion is like before I actually stop talking about infusion in general and start talking about the strategy. Okay, so perfect infusion pretty much works out this way. Perfect infusion is pretty much taking the data, the infused data from the previous weapon, and putting it to the weapon you're trying to infuse. So pretty much how this is going to work out, since they have already one infusion on this weapon, right? It's going to carry, like with perfect infusion, there's infusion and perfect infusion right here. It shows you the difference. With perfect infusion, it's going to carry over that one infused or infusion, and on top of it, since I'm infusing a new weapon, it's going to give me a new infusion on top of it. So it's pretty much how this is going to work out. And by the way, you're not getting away with how much ethers and gold it will cost to infuse whatsoever either. If I were to try perfect infusion with a similar weapon, it's going to cost 6 ethers instead of 2. And then if I were to try a near like the exact same weapon instead, when it comes to perfect infusion, it would cost 0 ethers instead. So no matter how you're going to do perfect infusion, you're not getting away with how much it originally costs. The only difference between perfect infusion and regular infusion is you don't have to sacrifice crap ton of gear to actually obtain this level. It's going to cost the same ethers, it's going to cost the same gold, but you don't have to start sacrificing all other types of freaking gear just to get to whatever you're trying to get to. So that's what I like about perfect infusion, is it literally carries over the infused data to a new weapon if you really want it to happen. Okay, so with that being said, let's get on to the next part of this video. Okay, so strategy for infusion and what I would do to use the least amount of ethers and be most efficient while I'm trying to infuse. Okay, so all hands down, the laziest method that you could literally do, or the most automatic method, is the class spawn. You're literally getting it infused 4 times right off the bat, and it's guaranteed to be of your class or whatever you choose, whether you're choosing headpiece or armor plate or whatever. Pretty much right off the bat, 4 infusions. You're already set for that. All you gotta do is go to your 5th one and bada boom, bada bang. if you have the exact same weapon, it's literally 2 ethers to get a max Infuse new weapon. So it's pretty easy. Now a lot of you don't like the idea of just the class spawn and then boom, you're done. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you that actually want to work on your own individual weapons, or weapons that are not in the class spawn whatsoever, or you just don't like the class spawn because it's a little too random for your taste and you keep getting 32 cost and whatnot. And that's okay, because I also have a manual method, because I myself am one of those people at the same time, just like you. Okay, so literally the manual method is pretty much what I would do is infuse near identical weapon from level 1 to level 3, and then when it comes to level 4 and 5, what I would do is use the exact same weapon. Reason for this being is, you all know, if I said in my previous part of the video, near identical is going to cost 1, the exact same is going to cost 0, right? But getting the exact same weapon is pretty dang hard, because it's literally only one weapon, and like Unison League has a crap ton of weapons in the game that you could spawn for, you could obtain, and what so not. So unless you're doing this in like treasure medals constantly, it's pretty hard to get the exact same weapon over and over and over, because there's so many other like gear pieces that a team has to offer and spawns. It's not logical for you to keep getting the same gear piece over and over commonly. And in fact, if it isn't fixed, I don't know how you're usually going to be able to get the same thing over and over, like metal fixed and whatnot. Or it just has higher rates for that type of stuff anyways. Moving on from there, where I'm trying to get at is near identical has way more of a bigger list, a bigger dictionary, and what so not. So honestly, making the sacrifice and doing one in ether from level 1 to level 3 is not a bad idea at all compared to the 0-1. The reason for this being is when you get to level 4 and level 5, you already know it's going to cost 5 ethers and then 10 ethers for level 4 and 5 using a near identical. But since you saved your same weapons, because same weapons are going to be a lot harder to get than near identical, you can instead make it 1 ether for level 4 and then 2 ethers for level 5. Or if you perhaps only have one of the same weapon, just save it for level 5 infusion and make sure that level 5 is literally 2 ethers, and then you're good to go. So that's literally what I would do. Since near identical is a lot more common, you already know you might be only getting like, if you're lucky enough to get like one of the exact same weapon, to be fairly honest most of the time, or not just weapon but gear piece, to be fairly honest. So using near identical is the most fastest way you're actually going to be able to obtain it. In fact, by the time you're done obtaining usually 5 of the exact same weapon, it's usually out of date and not really worth it anymore. So it's going to take a long time to obtain the exact same weapon 5 times. Near identical, on the other hand, there's such a big list, it's probably not going to be worrisome at all. So take that sacrifice, use 1 ether from level 1 to level 3, and then level 4 and level 5 use the exact same weapon. If you only have one of the exact same weapon, save it for level 5 and you're pretty much good to go. It's going to cost 2 ethers instead of 10. That's literally saving 8 ethers, and you're pretty much good to go. That's all for this video. I hope this helped out, and I will see you in the next video. Show them your new gear score from Infusion, and I'm out. Catch you in the next video. Peace.